Hi, I'm Christine Persichetti. It's one of the busiest stops for New York City's subways. Grand Central Station sees about 500,000 people every day running and praying to catch a train. But if you pass through the iconic transit hub during Tuesday evening rush hour, you'll hear actual prayers mixed in with the train announcemements. Kearsley's Katie Vasquez is here to tell us about the group in charge of the rush hour rosaries. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Christine. They're probably more reliable than the subway. For decades, parishioners from nearby Church of St. Agnes have walked right after the Tuesday 5:10 p.m. Mass to Grand Central. Their prayers now an integral part of the symphony of sounds happening during New Yorkers' commutes. The sounds of the evening rush hour at Grand Central Station. Thousands of people heading home from a busy day at work. And in the middle of the hustle and bustle, one group stops, taking their time to pray.
The rosary, as Padre Pio said, is the greatest weapon of this time.
For almost 40 years, members of the Legion of Mary at the Church of St. Agnes in Manhattan have come here every Tuesday to recite the rosary outside the 4, 5, and 6 train. The former associate pastor at St. Agnes, Father William Shelley, started the Rosary Prayer Group in the transit hub to help spread the faith.
Stand up and represent the Catholic Church in public and, in front of people of different walks of life, and said, I'm proud to be Catholic.
And before he passed in 2012, he entrusted them to keep the prayers going.
When he knew that his time on earth was coming to a close, he asked Horace and myself to please continue the subway rosary.
Holy Mary, Mother of God.
Over the years, as trains rushed by and the city changed, the Rosary Group has remained.
We've given out a lot of rosaries along the way.
They even picked up some new members along the way, some temporary.
I remember one time one of the police officers came over to me and said, would you pray for my father? He's in the hospital. And she stayed and said a decade with us as well.
And some who felt called to come back.
One day I was coming out the train station and I saw a group praying the rosary and I was so touched and inspired. I said, I gotta come back.
But no matter what the reason for their prayers,
you pray for peace, you pray for the sick.
The message has stayed the same.
I really think it's a way of telling people, there are people of faith in this city.
The group admits sometimes they do get dirty looks from commuters, but overall the response has been positive, reinforcing their commitment to keep up the public prayers. Christine?
Thanks, Katie. You too can join the Rosary Group. Just enter Grand Central Terminal through the Lexington Avenue side. They'll be near the subway entrance around 5:45 p.m. You can also meet the group at the Church of St. Agnes on 43rd Street. As Katie said, they'll meet after the 5:10 p.m. Mass and walk to Grand Central together. Be sure to tune in just over a week. Katie will be part of our March for Life team coverage. Katie, Jessica Easthope, and the Tablet's John Lavenberg will be in D.C. for the march. Just tune in Friday, January 19th, right here on Net TV for full coverage of the national event. Turning now to New York City's migrant crisis. Mayor Eric Adams' 60-day limit for migrants living in city shelters is under investigation. City Comptroller Brad Lander announced the investigation into the policy. Families are being evicted from their shelters once they reach that limit, and those with nowhere else to go are sent to Roosevelt Hotel to reapply for another 60-day stay. The investigation will look into the costs of the implementation and the potential of migrant children being forced to transfer schools mid-year. You can read about how the church is helping the migrants in this week's tablet, from the deanery that's taking a whole migrant camp under its wing to the caring deacons who have stepped up to help migrants in need. Plus, the paper is diving into the latest on the Vatican's Global Synod. The U.S. bishops are asking all the dioceses to hold a second round of listening sessions in the coming months. The tablet explains what questions the church is trying to answer and encourages all Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn to participate. Those listening sessions are all leading up to the final global meeting happening in the fall. Currents News' Jessica Easthope explains what you can expect to see in the coming months.
Years of meetings have been leading up to this, the final assembly of the Synod on Synodality in October 2024. And now the Vatican is releasing the next steps for Catholic leadership across the globe. First, the General Secretariat of the Synod will provide Pope Francis with a list of topics addressed at the last assembly. Topics that fall within the sphere of the universal church, like the relationship between religious congregations and bishops, the formation of priests, the meaning of the diaconate, and whether women can be deaconesses. In January, the Pope will approve the topics for deeper study. Then, experts from across the globe will be called on to explore the questions together with the appropriate dicasteries. The conclusions will be presented at the final assembly in October. Next, the General Secretariat of the Synod asks local churches to form groups within their dioceses to reflect on this question together. How can we be a synodal church in mission? Giving value to the responsibilities of the people of God and explaining the relationship between the Bishop of Rome and the local churches. The Synod Secretariat is inviting bishops to involve people from different backgrounds, from members of religious congregations to lay associations, catechists, parish priests, and those in charge of church-related institutions like universities or hospitals. Each diocese must send their conclusions to the General Secretariat of the Synod by May 15th. They will then help Rome generate the working document that will be used for the October Assembly. The General Secretariat of the Synod emphasizes that the goal of the Synod is not to reflect on one specific theme, but rather how these reflections are carried out with synodality. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
A huge procession for Christ has returned to the Philippines.
Viva Bong Jesus Nazareno! Viva!
2 million Catholics filled the streets of Manila for the Black Nazarene procession. It's the first time the event has returned to this scale since the pandemic. For 15 hours, the crowd touched or kissed the more than 400-year-old statue of Christ. It was brought to the Philippines by missionaries in Mexico, and it has survived fires, earthquakes, floods, and bombings. Finally tonight, this is your last chance to enter the tablet's Keep Christ in Christmas art contest. The paper, along with the Archbishop John Hughes Council of the Knights of Columbus, invites all student artists to express their faith through art with the theme Keep Christ in Christmas. Students across the Diocese of Brooklyn are competing for cash prizes and to have their artwork published in the tablet. You have until midnight Wednesday night to submit. Just go to thetablet.org. You can find all the contest details right there on the homepage. You can also subscribe to the paper right there on that website. So good luck to everyone. That is this Currents News Update. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.